welcome to the JTM Community Podcast, where we are building a community you can bank on. I'm your host, Jason Melvin. If you are watching this, you already know who our guest is, as he has damn near been a co-host since the beginning. I don't even know how many episodes you've been in at this point. If you're listening, we'll get to that in just a minute. Of course, if you want to touch base with me for advancement advising, you can do so at j-tm.community. If you want podcast-specific stuff, just add a /podcast. It'll take you exactly to where you want to be. If you want to become, join our community and help motivate and inspire, or be motivated and inspired by others, you can join our Facebook group. All the social medias are on the top right-hand side of the website. Again, the Facebook group is where a new poll goes live every Monday morning. You all send your feedback, stories, ideas, and then those get turned into topics, and then you all vote. For this week, actually, we kind of cut out the middleman, which is me, and you are directly inputting the topics into the poll. Again, if you want to touch base with me or check out the podcast info, j-tm.community, add that /podcast. Without further ado, we are joined today for I don't even know how to say this.
The upteenth time?
Yeah, the 4-episode miniseries, but covering, I think, 8 topics.
I was just trying to count. I couldn't figure it out.
We are here with Will Squires. Mr. Will Squires, if you want to go ahead and introduce yourself, and then we'll get rolling.
Hi, Will Squires. Like he said, I've been here a lot, so for newer people, welcome. I am a husband, not a father, thank goodness, right now. Teacher, son, of course, and avid nerd and sports person. I don't know how to put it any other way. So,
how long have you been a teacher, Will? I want to say 11 years.
Well, total it's been 13. Total it's been 13, but overall it's 11. Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Again, today we're covering 8 topics over 4 episodes. Not all of those topics are 2. Some are 3, 1, and 2 at that point. So the episode, the first one we're going to start with was a 3-way tie. So episode, or part 1, is going to be on what are you looking forward to, time it takes to be intentional, and the Serenity Prayer. Then episode 2, or part 2, will be on balance. Then part 3 will be on the idea of fear and letting go. And then part 4 was a 2-way tie, which will be on what does honor mean and do, as well as good or bad, our purpose to remember.
And just another thing, when we do these kinds of things, Jason gives us the topic, but he doesn't give us a lot of time to think about it. So
no.
if it comes straight out from my mouth, I'm sorry.
That's the whole point, is that it's the lack of preparedness. Typically, when people have the opportunity to prepare, it becomes more professional and less conversational. So the whole goal is to be ill-equipped going into the conversation.
Oh, there you go.
All right, so everyone will notice a 25-minute timer will start. That'll kind of keep us on track. We will head into part 4, which is going to be 2 topics, so we'll do about 12 minutes each. Okay. So we're going to be chatting about what does honor mean and do. So I'm guessing that popped up around Memorial Day. And then
that was the Memorial Day one. I remember that one.
And then good or bad, our purpose to remember. So what does honor mean to you, and what does it do?
Honor goes back to a lot of the things that we've talked about in the past. You know, doing your job when you say you're going to, following through on everything, being a good human being, morally, ethically, spiritually, however you want to look at it. Just not, if we're talking about a person and being an honorable person, not doing anything to anybody, being capable of being, a dangerous human being, but understanding like how a lot of the things that I've been reading and listening to lately are just about how, you honor yourself by how you treat other people, but you have to be capable of being the badass too.
I think, for just to interject, I think it was by Jordan Peterson. He mentions something along these lines: become a monster and then learn to tame it.
Yeah, and it's somebody else was grilling him about being violent. He goes, "No, you should be capable of it. Should be capable of violence." But and he said it the same kind of thing: know how to restrain it, and know not bring it out unless absolutely necessary.
Yeah. To be a good man, you have to be capable of evil, essentially.
Yeah, because you can't have a good person unless they're good and bad. Or that's why certain religions have that belief is you can't have the good without the dark. You have to have the balance.
Sure.
Yeah, you have the balance kind of aspect of everything, like we were talking about earlier. So I think to be honorable, you have to have all of that. You have to be caring, kind, considerate, know how to treat people morally and ethically properly, but also be able to follow through with everything that you say you're going to do, but also be able to defend those people that are in your care and charge.
I love that. That our brains go into two very different directions at no point. So what you just said, I understand and I agree with you, but at no point was that the direction that my brain went when I read that topic. So what does honor mean? So when I thought of that idea of honor, it was the sense of like commemorating someone or something or an event that is important to you.
Okay, I get that one.
So like honoring my grandfather would be like upholding traditions that were important to him, or a certain level of mindset, right? To be faithful, to be kind, which a lot of those things do lend to what you were talking about.
Yeah.
But when I heard honor, it's the effort that you put in to uphold qualities of a thing, a person, or a place. To honor the lives lost to create our country and to defend our country, right? To me is something that I learned from Branson is to live the life that they no longer get to.
Right.
Which I think is something that we all forget very quickly. And then it is to be intentional with the time to like display to that, right? So, and if I go back to Grandpa now, the idea of tradition. So something super dumb that I do is every Thanksgiving, because they would have cranberry sauce, right? The can, it's like that gelatinous.
Yeah, the stuff that everybody's like, oh my god, that's so horrible, but then you eat it and you're like, oh my god, I love it.
Is that pretty good? Yeah.
Yeah, I love that stuff. So
every Thanksgiving, even in the moments that I forget, Tracy's been a blessing to remember, right? Is that we'll have a can, right? Usually it goes relatively untouched, but it's like a thing that we'll do. But it's just like the idea of
remembrance almost.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. I think that is, which I'm guessing that's why those two topics are tied together. Is the function of honor and what it does serves to almost be a callback or a memory of that person, that situation, those things, that place.
Rachel's family does kind of the same thing that you do. She had a cousin that passed away very, very young, but she loved, I can't remember if she loved Brussels sprouts or if it was just the fact that they tormented her about loving Brussels sprouts and she really didn't. Yeah. But every family holiday that we're with her family, her side of the family, we will always have Brussels sprouts. Brussels sprouts. There we go. Just to honor that memory of her, the remembrance of her, the joy. We will, her father still makes her grandfather's recipe for marinara sauce because he was full-blooded Italian, just awesome dude. I still, my mother and I still take care of the yard and the house that my grandfather, like, they raised my mother in, kind of a way to honor my family. I think honoring, like, just honoring things in general is a great thing, but I do agree. It kind of, our definitions were like,
yeah,
they diverged in different ways,
but yeah. As we were talking about that, it reminded me. So by the time this episode does air, it will be available, but it hasn't aired yet, and it won't for a while yet. Recently, it'll be episode 102. It was with Branson and Shay. Was what?
What did you do for episode 100? You got to do like an episode. You got to do like there should have been like
a celebration.
Yeah, like a how they do episode 100 for all these different TV shows and stuff. You should have had like a celebration for. Never mind. Okay, we'll talk about that later. So
episode 102, I think really embodies at least like what my brain does when I think of honor, because it was a conversation with Branson and Shay. As they talked about their experience doing the Bataan Memorial Death March.
Yes.
And I think like that is kind of like the epitome of honoring someone, a situation, an event, a place, right? Where almost like doing things in relation to a person, right?
Yeah.
So for me, and the silly example was the gelatinous cranberry sauce, right? For them, it was taking a half a day to pack like 26. I can't remember 26.
They rucked it, so they rucked. I can't remember how long it was, but yeah, they had their rucksacks on and everything, and hiking all over the blanking place.
So when I think of honor, that's what my brain does, and the purpose, I think, is betterment. It's to have the memory of a thing, to know that we should desire to be better, right? So in small ways and in big ways, it's to not take things for granted. It's a moment of reflection almost.
I like that too, because it does. Honor has so many different things that we can. I'm going to do this real quickly too. Honor, because we have our two definitions, but I'm just looking at, like, right now I'm looking it up on Oxford. It literally has two meanings as a noun. Sorry, four meanings as a noun, and two as a verb. So it's 6 total definitions. So I think it's just a way that you can split as many hairs as you want to, but the fact of the matter is that there are things that should be honored, ways that you can honor, and just seeing the different levels of honoring that can happen just by the smallest of things is kind of cool to just see how it rolls differently, because I talked about it in terms of the person you are, and a lot of the things that I've learned, a lot of the characteristics that I try to take on, I learned from my grandfather, who was in that type of system. He was very militaristic style, like was raised very strictly, but worked his butt off. And so when I look at honor, I feel like I'm honoring him as if I do the same kind of thing. So
it's kind of the tie-in to both things, both the characteristics, but also the past. Yeah, as you brought up and you were bringing up the word honor, I did as well, which looking through A couple of those are other directions that my brain didn't go. I understand them and agree with them.
Oh,
so
absolutely.
like honoring a deal, right? Like adherence to.
Yeah, you say you're going to do it, you do it.
Yep. Which again makes sense and is very applicable, but in no way did my brain go in that direction when it came to honor. Let's go ahead and jump to the second topic for this part, which is similar. Good or bad, our purpose to remember. What does that even mean to you?
Well, here goes the teacher cap again. The purpose to remember is everything is going to teach you a lesson in life, the good or the bad. So, everybody goes, just remember the good things. And I said it back, just earlier when we were talking about grief and loss, remember the good times. But you also have to remember the bad times to teach you a lesson, like what not to do, what other people feel about you. If you have a bad interaction with somebody you've known for a long, long time, and all of a sudden you're no longer speaking. Number one, they were in your life for a reason. And that interaction should teach you something, either about humanity as a whole, that person, yourself, or things that you might need to change. So there's always, good or bad, there's always a lesson to learn from remembering, from things that you can remember. Should I go on hikes by myself? No.
Especially right now.
Well, no, especially right now. Yes, I know that. But I love to hike by myself. But seeing all these different friends of mine who have gotten injured and then had to get called, have people come up to get them. Or, it's just good or bad memories or things that I've learned from other people. It's just remembering that there's always a lesson in anything that you do. Even if it's just driving to the store, there is something that you are observing. There's something that you are taking in from the surroundings around you, and you need to be able to work with that and understand, kind of pull everything out of that, boil it down, as you will, to life lesson moments. So,
yeah, I would agree with all of that. I think good or bad, our purpose to remember, I would condense it down to solely good, because even the bad things, right, the reason why we remember them are for betterment. It's for good. I have my first 3 tattoos were all this message, right? So my very first tattoo, the guy couldn't create what I wanted him to, so he did like his version of what he was able to, which is a Celtic cross. It was supposed to be what my last tattoo was, which is much larger, which was an angel, essentially hugging the cross, right, with its wings crossed. But he couldn't do that, so it's basically a stenciled Celtic cross, and behind it was angel wings. Well, the guy was going through his own things, and I believe he commits suicide shortly after, which is also why I will never have the tattoo touched up. Again, going back to what we just talked about in the sense of honoring
remembrance, right?
So it is the Celtic cross. However, the wings change from one side to the other, right? So one of the wings looks more angelic, right? And one of the wings looks less so, looks a little more demonic. It's colored outside lines and whatnot. And what that has always served a purpose for me, especially with the story of the loss of life, is the yin and yang to that.
The balance between good and evil.
Yep, kind of.
Light and dark.
The next 2 tattoos that I got are both crosses on my forearms, and they're emitting power, right? So that's displayed as flame, but one is shaded opposite the other. So one, the cross itself is shaded with like blacks and orange and yellows, right? Which are typical colors that are bad. And then on the other, it's shaded with whites and light blues and a blackish color, right? Which typically denotes good. But opposite of those, the flames are the other color, which for me has always had the purpose of no matter the situation, good or bad, right? There's always a lesson to be learned, good or bad. So even in good times, bad things can happen.
Yep.
Right? And even in terrible times, wonderful things can happen.
I like that.
Right? So it has served when I have struggled in life to be mindful that that's a thing and that's how life works.
Mm-hmm.
I've suffered most. But when I remember that, which I do very, very well now, I mean, been very intentional for almost 20 years at this point, is that idea of there's a lesson to be learned. There's always a lesson, right? And when we choose not to seek it, then we have suffering without purpose. But when we choose to seek it, then the suffering tends to be gone, right? Because
one would hope,
it's a thing that we experience for this lesson to be learned, right? I'm not saying the pain goes away, but the
no, like
exacerbated
suffering, suffering and pain are different things. So I can see that.
So to go back to my original comment, is the purpose to remember is always good. So maybe you remember this shit ass relationship you were in, right? So you can either have the trauma, right, and relive that shit, or you can learn the blessing of these are characteristics of people that I want nothing to do with.
Mm-hmm.
But the next time you are making friends or have an attraction to someone, allow that experience, that past relationship, to be the red flags to not enter into a new relationship or a friendship with, right? You start to hope. Yes. Again, that's when you seek the lesson.
Yes.
So I'm going to pick on my sister because
she's going to love this.
She's been very candid. This won't be a surprise to anyone that's listened to episodes with her. And if you're curious, go watch any episode with Tasha.
Go watch them all. They're awesome. So,
she has had a pattern over the years of being in very similar relationships to varying degrees of toxicity, right? And I remember she was talking to me one day. This was a long time ago, and she used the metaphor of fishing, right? If you keep fishing in the same pond, you'll catch the same fish.
Yes.
Right. So it was kind of the acknowledgement that she can't control everything, but there are factors she can control.
Where she fishes.
That she chose not to. Yep. Which again makes sense based on the previous comment that I had made with her when she said the level of toxicity felt like home, right? At the time, I'm guessing she didn't realize that was a thing at play until she got older and wiser to understand, like this thing that I'm drawn to feels familiar, but familiarity doesn't necessarily mean good.
Yeah, familiarity doesn't always mean good. It does not.
If she can remember that, right, then we can do better.
Everybody can. Not, I mean, and it's you use the relationship thing. So, and I'll kind of stick with it. You do see a lot of people, look for the same type of drama or interactions because they're just so used to it, and it's so much of that, like what we were talking about in the last episode, I think, or not last episode, but just the last discussion, the fear of the unknown.
Oh yeah.
What happens if I go away from this type of thing? What happens if I go away from this type of person? What happens if I go away from this type of living situation? What happens if I go away from this type of like what else is out there, because they're so scared that like, well, I don't think I could find anything better, because they've lowered their, not standard, but they've lowered their self-confidence and self-worth so much that I feel like people in relationships who either don't get out of them or are just scared to, because they don't know what else is out there, are just, they've just dropped their self-care and confidence so much that it's hard for them to get away from that, and they fear that. So I think that's kind of the same thing. Like, you'll never get to that, but it's good to remember that when you go back, because if you can get out of that cycle, and you understand it, like we were talking about earlier, you can understanding the differences between things. Hopefully you can make something better for yourself and raise yourself up and get into a better situation, instead of just always going back to the same old thing every single time and then wondering why it happens.
And the beauty of it is that everyone is capable.
Everybody is capable.
Yes. We have the courage to do it despite the fear that we have. Oh shoot, I just lost it.
Did you just lose it?
Yep, literally mid-sentence I just lost it. It was in relation to that sense of remembering the situations that we had been through, kind of piggybacking on relationships, our previous conversation, trying to trigger the thought, and it's not working.
It happens. It's all right. We don't need to.
It's gone.
It's gone.
It is gone.
It has floated away, so it'll come back to you, and we can talk about it at another time. So
there we go.
It'll be a good thing. Maybe it'll come back, and you'll be like, "That's the next topic for the next episode."
It is interesting to, both professionally and personally, when I watch people make the choice to, I do remember, to induce more suffering. So I was going to put a plug in. That's what I was going to do, because of the context of our conversation. It's not my plug. So there's a podcast that is phenomenal. He has remarkable guests. How he gets these guests blows my mind. It's literally pretty high profile people, anywhere from like doctors and surgeons to scientists to criminals to mafia to like just all over the place. Very fascinating. So the podcast is Jordan Harbinger. And recently I had a friend send me an episode, which I had provided to others at this point as well. The episode is specifically on drama addiction, right?
I can believe it.
Which, going through, there's a lot of parts of it that I didn't like, just to be as objectively honest as I can be. But what it does make sense is that the chaos that people create in their life does come with a dopamine kick, right?
Everything we do is about how we feel about it and what we can get out of it. So when people chase that dopamine, so it's very similar to how social media works, how reality TV works, right? But the chaos that, and we all know somebody who creates their own chaos, right? Is that once we have the context of like that, the addiction to it, I'm not saying they're not removed from accountability. Absolutely, accountability is theirs. But that idea of when things are good, right? And they have this sense of like, when is the shoe going to drop? Yeah,
right?
When's the other shoe going to drop? Absolutely.
It's kind of an indicator that like this person, because it's almost like anticipating the next fix. Right?
It is like a drug addiction almost, or like some other type of addiction. You just need to keep doing it, and you don't know what you're gonna do without it.
Yep. And bridges get burned along the way, and relationships destroyed or ended, or the chaos, or which unfortunately it also tends to wreak havoc on other people as that person moves forward. To end this up, Will, what is a nugget that you would want people to walk away with when it comes to honor and when it comes to the importance of remembering?
God, I've been so bad at these lately. I think it all ties in together. So remember that I'm just going to say this one. Remember that the good and bad in your life has brought you to where you are, and to honor who you are no matter what. But I'm going to go back to another one as well and say, but plan to make healthy changes in the future. And you can still honor who you were, because, you know, if you're never growing as a person, you're not living. So remember who you were, honor that, remember who you are, or know who you are now, honor that. And like you said, plan for the future and honor those commitments.
I love it. The only takeaway I think that I would give folks is, in one form or another, it kept popping up, is that if you're not familiar with it, check out the Serenity Prayer, because it kind of embodies everything that we've talked about, the 7 or 8 topics over these last 4 episodes. Again, if you are tuning in anywhere in the middle, the first part was 3 topics, which was what are you looking forward to, the time it takes to be intentional, and the Serenity Prayer, followed by part 2, which was a single topic, which was of balance, followed by part 3, which was a single topic, which was fear, letting go, and then part 4, which was a tie, 2 topics, what does honor mean and do, and good or bad, the purpose of remembering. As always, Will, thank you for joining me today and spending a couple hours with me to have always a delicious conversation. I always enjoy our time together.
I'll spend hours with you anytime.
Thanks, Will. Yeah. If you are watching or listening and you want to touch base with me for advancement advising, you can do so at j-pm.community. If you are looking for podcast specific stuff, just add a /podcast to that. It'll get you exactly to where you want to go. If you're looking for resources in the Mount Pleasant, Michigan area, or national resources, you can find that also on the website under community partners. If you have an interest in gaming, which is a new thing that is also on there, there's a community gaming section where we put reviews from people we trust on there, as far as like random games that folks are playing, in case you have an interest there. I know a large part of communities these days are based or founded in gaming. That's how we built our relationship initially. Yep. was through that. So of course, if you want to join the community, you can find that on the website on the top right-hand side. The easiest thing that you can do for a little bit of motivation, inspiration, human connection, and humor is to join the Facebook group. Every Monday, a new poll goes live for voting on a future topic. That information typically comes from you all, so this doesn't work without you. Again, Will, thank you for joining me today, and thank you for everyone who has tuned in and for being part of a community where you belong.